Some people inside Chabad that might ridicule it also. And I want to go into what is the source for it outside Chabad, what is the source for it inside Chabad, and what does it mean, and also how to go about it, and what's the right way, and what's also the wrong way. So the first thing is, I brought this sheet said, I don't know if everybody wants the sheet or needs the sheet, but whoever wants, I have the sheets. And that is, the first thing is to realize that the original source for this idea is actually found in the Shulchan Aruch. I remember once hearing somebody was very upset, and he said, "This is voodoo, opening up a book and getting an answer." So it so happens to be that the source in Shulchan Aruch is in the laws of voodoo. There's a section of Shulchan Aruch which is called Yoredeya, and in that section they have the laws of what's considered sorcery, what's considered magic, what's considered something that's prohibited according to Torah. So it's things that are in the category of sorcery, it's prohibited according to Torah. And in that part of the Shulchan Aruch, that's what brings down that, however, opening up a Torah book and to see where it opens up to and go by what it says there, that it is an okay thing. In fact, it's advisable to do that. So where's the source in Shulchan Aruch? So again, anyone who wants, I can give out the sheet here. You'll have the source here. So on one side, you have the original copy of the Shulchan Aruch. On the other side, I just made it bigger, even though it's very hard to read because it's all Rashi letters. But I'm going to explain what it says here in a moment. So if anybody wants, here are these copies. Now I'll tell you what it says there. What it says there is that it's based on a story in Tanakh. This is the part I will give out copies. I'd like to go through what it says here, because this is the original source where this comes from. So, Shira, if you don't mind, you can dance around. Okay, thank you. What it says here on the bottom in the small words. I'll first read what it says here in the Shulchan Aruch. So this is what it says. I'm going to read it in English, not even read the Hebrew, so we'll have a little bit more time. That it's permissible to open up a Torah book to see what verse comes up randomly, because the Torah is our source of life. And we find this in reference to Yeshayahu, that he actually did whatever he did based on a Torah scroll that was opened up, and they went by what it says where it's open. And this is what it means when it says in the Medrash called Yalkut, that if you want to take advice from the Torah, you can take advice from the Torah. What does it mean take advice from the Torah? The Torah is where all the laws are. Advice from the Torah means, we're not talking about the mitzvahs, that's clearly written in the Torah, but it means to open up the Torah book and to look to see where it opens up to. And that is something which you look at it as that it's from Shemayim, it's from heaven, that you happen to open up at that place, and it's giving you a message, sort of an answer to your question. So what's the source? What you have here, this is, I just chose this because this is the simplest thing to follow. And it's they call it the family Tanakh. Look at page 325, that's where this begins. 325. And this is a time in history where, unfortunately, Avodah Zarah, idol worship, was very common. The people worshipped idols, the king worshipped idols, they actually forced people to worship idols. It was a very difficult time. And then that king, his name was Achaz, he was eliminated, And another king came in his place who was a tzaddik, and his name was Yeshio, and he was working on restoring things back to the way it were before. One of the things that happened, that's what this is talking about, is that you can see it, we'll read it from the top of the page, that when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to write the Torah down, it says in the Chumash that he wrote down the 13 Torah scrolls. He gave each tribe one Torah scroll, and what did he do with the 13th? The 13th was in the Holy of Holies, which means right next to the Ark and the Luchas, there was a piece of wood, according to some opinions, and on that piece of wood was the Torah scroll. But in the later generations, this Torah scroll disappeared. Nobody knew where it was. And the reason thought to be why it was done is because these people who were corrupt, they took over the power. They were in charge of the country. They were in charge of the Beis HaMikdash. And apparently somebody who was a God-fearing Jew was afraid that they might do something to the Torah scroll because they didn't believe in everything that's written there. And in fact, they believed in idol worship. Who knows what they would do to the Torah scroll? So it could be that somebody hid it, buried it somewhere, that no one should have access to it. So the good news was that no one had access to it. But the bad news is now that we're ready to use it, we don't have it. So one day, as they were cleaning out the Beis HaMikdash, they found the Torah scroll. And of course, everybody was very excited. But then, when they opened it up, what did it say? It opened up to a Parsha Kisavai, the book of Devarim, where the Torah predicts that the Jewish people will go into exile. Okay, I'm reading now from closer to the end of the page. It says the Kohen Gadol, his name was Chilkiyahu, he told the scribe that next time you visit the king to report on the progress of construction, take the Torah scroll with you and read it to him from the place where we found it open. When we opened it, that's where it opened to. He went to the king. He told him the good news. Turn to page 326. And then he said there's something else which he wants to tell him. And that's we found the Torah scroll, but these are the words that it says. Hashem will lead you and the king that you set up to a nation unknown to you and to your fathers, and you go into exile. And of course, the king was very concerned about the fact that that's what they found in the Torah scroll. So then he called, there was a woman who was a prophetess, she was a Neviah, her name was Huldah. And he sent them to call her to find out if this is really a message from Shemayim. Anyway, she came and she said it was a message from Shemayim. I'll leave the rest with you to read the details. But what do we see from this story? That because they opened the Torah scroll, and that's where it was, and that was the message, that means that that something was happening, that they would, Chas v'shalom, be going to Golus. And then it tells us what happened. He did tshuva, and it happened anyway, but it was delayed. It didn't happen exactly then when they thought it would happen. That's number one. So next time anyone says to you, well, this sounds like voodoo, you open up the Shulchan Aruch with the laws of voodoo, and you show them that this is what it says, and it's based on the story in Tanakh. I just want to add, again, this is what I'm saying for people who what the Rebbe writes is maybe not good enough for them, so therefore they need to have other sources. There's a book that was published, which is the life of Rabbi Feinstein. He was considered, I guess, the greatest authority of halacha in our generation in recent times. He actually lived here in America, lived in Manhattan, on the East Side, and the whole world looked to him as the greatest authority of halacha in our times today. So there's a book that was printed by Art Scroll about his life and details about his life. So they have a story of how another Rosh Yeshiva, who the one who eventually built the yeshiva in Lakewood, that he was in doubt where he should move to. Should he move to America because we have this great sage, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, or should he move to Israel because there was another great sage there who happened to be his father-in-law? His name was Rabbi Zalman Meltzer. So what did he do? He opened up a Chumash, and he would say, "Let me see what it says in the Chumash." And that's what I will do. He opened up the Chumash, and the Chumash opened up to a verse where it said, and Hashem said to Aaron, "Go to Moshe in the wilderness." So he said, well, America is a wilderness in those days, as far as Yiddishkeit is concerned. The reason why he wanted to go to America is because there was Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. So I figured this is a clear instructions from Shamayim that he should go to America. And on that basis, he moved to America, and the whole community of Lakewood today, with thousands of people, is based on that. Yes.
There was a rabbi, not from God, that told me once that before he would be able to open the Torah and find the answer, that somehow in this day and age it's not accessible to us anymore because we have become lower spiritually. So I'm wondering if there is.
Did he also tell you his source?
He did.
Okay. Next time you see him, ask him for the source.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the story that I just told you about going to America only happened in the 1940s. So was he referring to between 1940 and 1970, 80? That is a Torah book where it says that after 1940 it stopped. Another thing is, again, this is another book which is called Tzaddik in Our Times. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in Israel there used to be someone by the name of Rabbi Iyar, who everyone referred to him as a great tzaddik. And there was a story that shook up the whole country when it happened. The story was that there was an incident with 30. Well, just to give a little bit of background, there's a place in Israel today. It's called Gush Etzion. It all started off with a little village. It was called Kfar Etzion, and this is a place that Jewish people came there and they settled. And when the war broke out in 1948, so the men who lived in that place, they all decided that they're going to fight. So they sent their wives and their children to Yerushalayim, and they were going to fight. They would block the Arabs from coming to Yerushalayim. And the truth is, eventually, they did say that this was part of the reason why they were able to conquer Yerushalayim, because of these soldiers. They weren't soldiers, they were just regular civilians, but they held back the Arabs from coming to Yerushalayim. Unfortunately, these people who were there, they were successful, but until the last day, one day before the day of independence in Israel, one day before, on the 4th day of Iyar, they were in the shelter, and the Arabs threw a hand grenade, and they unfortunately all died there. One of the people in that place was actually my uncle. I'm named after him. And for a year, they wouldn't even allow the bodies to come back. There's another part of the story was that they were lacking supplies. So the 35 soldiers went to them to bring them supplies. And on the way, they were attacked by Arabs. And there's another story behind that. They had compassion on a certain Arab. And as that Arab who they had compassion went back and called his friends, and they killed all these people who had compassion on them. And they, unfortunately, they all were killed. When it came to burying them, they were only able to identify a certain amount. There were 12 people. They could not identify who they were. This is after the war was over, and they wanted to give them a proper burial. So they went to this tzaddik, and they asked him if he can help them, what they can do. And what he did was what we just did. So you have to read the story inside to see the details, but he opened up a book of Torah, and basically it had a name there that related to one of the names of the people. And that was his basis. So this is this person. He opened up another page and it had another name, which is the name of another one of the 12 people. So this is this body. And that's how he identified all 12 bodies. So what does this mean? It means that this is not something which is initiated or invented by Chabad. This is something which has always been done. People have been doing this, and really nothing new. So when someone comes along and says, "Well, only worked in the olden days, doesn't work in nowadays," if there's a source for that, we'll have to deal with it. But so far, we see these are the sources. Now the question is,
But
did the Rebbe ever approve something like this? What?
the Lord Kodesh is later from the Rabbi, is not that it's different from the Torah. I don't know.
So that's one could raise a question: is it only a Torah scroll? Is it a book of Torah? In this case, they actually used the Chumash. They didn't use a Torah scroll. They didn't use a Sefer Torah. And then there are other sources. I'm not covering everything now, but there are other sources. That's not only a Torah. It could be any book of Torah. If it's a book of Torah, then the same principle applies. Like again, someone asked me, so why can't I just have the New York Times and whatever opens up to it, that's going to be the same. And the answer is because Torah is something which is holy. Like it says, you can take advice from the Torah. So then, because it's holy and it's something spiritual and something godly, so that's why we're saying if you open it up at a certain page, it's a sign from Shemayim. But if you open up something else, definitely everything that happens is by divine providence, but we're not capable of reading that when you're dealing with other things. But in Torah, the purpose of Torah is to guide us. That's why. As far as the Rebbe is concerned, yes, the Rebbe did speak about this more than once, a number of times, years back. It wasn't about Igros Kodesh, but about the idea that it's a custom, a Jewish custom, that if people were in a dilemma and didn't know what to do, what direction to take, and it's not something which is clearly in Jewish law that says this is right or this is wrong and you don't know what to do, or it's just something about opening a business, it's a question about where I should live, things that are just personal questions. So people would open a Torah book and open it random. The reason why it's done random is because then you look at it like it's a simon from Shemayim. Now this is called goro. Does anyone know the term goro? If not, let me explain. Goro is the word that means like drawing lots. On the board? Okay. This is the Hebrew. The Gimel, Vav, Rei, Lamed. It's this way it's spelled Gor. Goro. So we find in the Torah that there were certain things that the way to determine the right thing is by drawing lots. One is in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Kippur. There were two goats. One goat was supposed to be brought as a sacrifice. One goat was supposed to go la'azazel. And how did they know which is which? It was a whole procedure. It's a pasuk in the Chumash that the thing to do is you take a basket and you put inside papers, and one says for Hashem, one says la'azazel. The kohen will put his hand in, and basically, and the one on his right hand would go to the goat on his right side. Whatever came out on his left hand would go to the goat on the left side, drawing lots. That's number one. Number two, every morning in the Beis Hamikdash, they had many kohanim. There were many jobs to do. How did they determine which kohen does which job? And the answer is, every job had a number. And in the morning, they would choose, just like you choose, it was 1, 2, they would take a number and choose. And based on that, which is again random, they would go around the room and choose a person, and this would be number one, so he got job number one. The next person next to him got job number two, and so on and so forth. So basically, that means in the Beis Hamikdash, they chose things by doing something at random and looking at it, this is a sign from Shemayim. When the Rebbe speaks about the custom to open a book, the Rebbe brings down from Rabbi Sajagon, I think. Where he says that this is it looks like you're just doing them, you just happen to choose this number or that number. Oh, here it is from Chuvas HaGoyim, that this is from Shemayim, and whoever violates it by saying, in other words, they're dismissing it and saying doesn't mean anything just because you randomly chose this number or randomly chose this thing. Who says whoever violates it, it's like violating any one of the 10 commandments. So clearly, there's a concept in Torah about gorel, things that are done randomly, if it's done in context of Torah, like in the Beis Hamikdash, or like opening up a Torah book, that this is looked upon as a sign from Shemayim. So the same is here. Now, of course, is the question that Shira brought up. Some people say maybe it's only a Torah book, maybe not Tehillim, not the Chumash, not Gemara, only a book of Chumash. But I don't think there's any source that says that excludes any other Torah book. It appears to be that any book of Torah in general. But there's a few things that have to be brought out to make this clear, and that is that sometimes when you open up a book of Torah, clearly it's not going to say and talk about what you're asking. It's going to be something similar. Give an example. The person is debating whether they should move. They're debating whether they should move. They live in an apartment, whether they should move. They open up the Igros Kodesh, and the Rabbi is writing to this person that your move to Israel should be very successful. Does that mean I have to pick myself up and go to Israel now? Or is that an answer that my move should be successful? You're not going to find a letter in Igros that is going to have my address on it and my telephone number. Or you'll find something similar. Like when people open the Chumash, they didn't find in the Chumash something that describes their personal situation, but they found something in the Chumash that's similar to their situation. I'm just going to, just 1 second. Like the Rebbe gave this example, a person's asking whether they should open a business or not open a business. And they open the Chumash and it says, open your hand to give tzedakah. So it's about tzedakah, but it says, open your hand, and your question whether you should open a business. So you take that as an answer. Yes, Ariel Malkin.
My question is, like, what would be an example of casting a lot that is prohibited in the Torah? You're saying like there's ways that you can use it and it's permitted in the Torah, but like how does that look like?
How does that look like? Well, that's one of the things that it talks about in this halacha. When people say, this and this happens, that's a sign that I should do this or that. Nothing to do with Torah. People say if a cat runs by, if a mirror breaks, this is a sign. These are not Torah things.
But is that a go-out?
Well,
Casting a lot?
well, you're saying that, right?
Yeah, like what's that?
A girl would mean if I just I flip a nickel or a dime or a penny and I say heads or tails, and that's not Torah, that's a penny. It has nothing to do with Torah. I don't know if that would be considered avodah zarah, but it just would be just nothing. It would just be random, but not have no substance to it. This is only if it's a book of Torah, and that's why it has an effect. Also, it's emphasized many times that this is only something that applies to things that there's no clear directive in Torah what to do. To give you an example of a story that once happened, where there was a woman that I knew, and she was divorced. A divorced woman is not allowed to marry a Kohen. Actually, this week's parsha. So, you know how it works? He's sitting by a Shabbos table, meets this person. After meeting who knows how many people, this person seems to be perfect. And they actually went out, and it was even better. And then she finds out that he's a Kohen.
Yeah.
So sometimes when that happens, you say, let's find out if he's really a Kohen. Maybe he thinks he's a Kohen. Sometimes the last name is Kohen, or the last name is Khan, but doesn't mean that they're a Kohen. So they do the research. Sure enough, he's a real, genuine Kohen. His father was a Kohen, and his grandfather was a Kohen. Anyway, it was very difficult, but she realized that it's not a match, okay? And then it was a year later, they met again, somehow, and they got into a conversation again, and again, it really bothered her. Then one day she called me up that she opened the Igros Kodesh, and it said on the page, Mazel Tov. So she got the Rabbi's answer, go ahead. So this is what I told her, and it's emphasized all over it. There's no such thing as opening up a book and finding out whether they have to follow what it says in Torah. What it says in Torah explicitly is clearly black and white. There's no question about it. It's only for things that there's no clear directive in Torah, then there's a point in opening up a book to see what should I do? Should I live here? Should I live there? Should I take this job? Should I take that job? Or other questions that are similar to that. But not chas v'shalom, anything where there's a clear answer in Torah of what to do, what not to do. Yeah.
You said though the rebel speaks freedom my fear, so it would be better to like go to somebody who understands it.
That's the next thing I want to say. Another thing that we have to be cautious when it comes to Igros Kodesh is, yes, it's true that there's a message there, but not always can I be sure that I'm interpreting the message correctly. First of all, there are people that they'll do somersaults. Oh, it says this word, and that word sounds like the other word, and the page number is 99, so that means I should do this. And that's not okay. What you do look for is something which is more clear. Sometimes, I believe me, I've seen people getting answers about questions, like sometimes people write about a shidduch, and the Rebbe will get an answer. The shidduch was a very good shidduch, and wishing you all the best. I mean, what could be more clear than that? What people are asking, like I said, about buying a house or about moving, and the letter that you get is actually about that subject in a very clear way. I remember once a woman told me that her son lives in Israel. She's trying to get him to America. She can't get him in. Someone suggested that she should try to arrange that he would get to Canada, because from Montreal it would be easier to get here to America. She opened up a letter, and the Rebbe writes to this person, I would suggest that you should have your son go to Canada. From Canada, it'll be easy to go to America. I would think that's a pretty clear answer. But believe me, that doesn't happen all the time. So sometimes it's not clear. And people could, being that I want a certain kind of an answer, I might read things into it which are not really there. So first of all, we should always make a point, I'll get to in a second, to try to get a mashpia or someone who's objective to read and see if they see that answer. Second of all, I once heard someone say that I don't need a mashpia because I just open Igros and do whatever it says. There couldn't be anything further from the truth. The Rebbe asked us many times that every person should find someone like a mentor that they can look to, mashpia, because we're not objective and we can easily be fooling ourselves, making decisions that are the wrong decisions just because I'm emotionally wound up in this situation. I don't see things clearly. So therefore, it's very important to have mashpia who's objective and they can see things clearly. Definitely, I would say that if a person has a question what to do, yes, the first thing you should turn to is a mashpia. That's a person you're talking to. They hear what you're saying. You hear what they're saying. Everything is clear. And if I'm looking for the Rebbe's answer, the Rebbe told us that when you go to mashpia and he gives you an answer, this is my answer. I think I told the story more than once that there was an older chassid. He told the story publicly, so we can repeat it. His name was Rabbi Zalman Garari. And he asked the Rebbe a certain question, and the Rebbe told him and referred him to someone, or either to the elder Hasidim or to the rabbis of the community, to follow their advice. Being that he had this very close connection to the Rebbe, he had the chutzpah to write back, no, I want the Rebbe's personal advice. The Rebbe writes to him, why do you care if my personal advice will come through that person? In other words, when the Rebbe tells us to go to mashpia, he's not rejecting us and saying, I have no time for you, don't bother me, go to your mashpia. He's basically saying that my answer is coming through this channel. The Rebbe said if people have questions on medical issues, then they should speak to a doctor that's a friend, so you can trust his opinion. Again, the same thing. It's not that he's saying, I don't want to give you an answer, go to a doctor. He's basically saying, my answer will be given to you through the doctor that's a friend. People have questions in business, they should go to people that are in business that understand this area. If you're about real estate, go to someone who understands real estate. If it's another business, go to someone who knows that business. And again, it's not like I don't want to take the time to answer you. It means my answer is coming through that channel. So definitely that should be the first thing. And if sometimes Mashpia says, this is a question I feel you should try to get an answer directly from the Rebbe, and they guide you to write to the Igros Kodesh, then that's the thing to do. But for someone to say, I don't need a Mashpia anymore because I have the Igros Kodesh, that basically means I wanted to do my own thing, and I'm going to find a way that Igros Kodesh will tell me exactly what I want him to tell me. Yes?
Is there a way or certain types of questions that we should or shouldn't ask? Like, should they be general and specific? Is there a certain way we should ask them? Are there certain topics that we shouldn't go? Does that make sense?
I don't know if there's any topics, anything that's relevant to me, anything that's important to me is something that I would ask.
Is it better that you ask a yes or no question or like an open-ended question?
Well, if you want clarity, it should be a yes or no question. Yeah.
Why would someone, what would someone to open interest if they have a Mashpia, if they're like learning to I don't know, they're watching Rabbi videos, like what's gonna make someone to open?
Again, based again on the Rebbe's words himself. See, we're running out of time. I don't know what's wrong with these clocks. They just are racing. We put in too many batteries in that clock.
They're not laboratory, they don't have time.
We need a luggage clock.
When the Rebbe spoke about, this was before the Rebbe accepted leadership, and was after the passing of the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe told people that they should write a note, and they should go to the Ohel and read it there. And if you write it there and you read it there, the Rebbe hears you. Or you could read it wherever you are, and you picture that you're reading it to the Rebbe, put it into not but put it into a book that's one of the Rebbe's Torah books. And by doing that, you're also delivering the letter to the Rebbe. That's how the Rebbe explained it. And his words were, the Rebbe will find a way to answer you. So that's one of the basis of the idea of writing to Igros. And then opening up, the feeling is that those people who do it is that when they open up a book, which is the Rebbe's book, and Igros is very different than anything else. The reason why it's different is because Igros, to begin with, are letters of advice in all areas of life, about marriage, about parnasa, about children, about education, about chinuch, about shlichus, any subject you want. Those books are all about this advice. In fact, whoever was the one who said to take all these letters and publish them, it was in the 1980s, so that people will, because these answers were given to one person, can also apply to other people. But the feeling is that if I'm taking a question, I put it into Igros, I'm giving the Rebbe my question. And I feel that when I open it up and there's an answer, this is where the Rebbe is answering me. So I guess why people would choose to write into Igros is because those who are genuine, not the ones who are trying to get away from someone else telling me what's right and what's wrong, because I want to do my own thing, but it's because they feel that this is more of a direct answer. Just like before, when the Rebbe was here physically with us, people wrote to the Rebbe, and they also spoke to their mashpia. There were certain things which, because they were very serious or very, very important, they felt this, I'd like to get an answer directly from the Rebbe. So here, the feeling is that this is more directly from the Rebbe. But I still think that it needs the caution to make sure that I'm doing it the right way. And another thing I want to say, what if I don't get any answer? Not every time you put a note into the Igros, you'll get an answer. You'll open it up, it has nothing to do with my question. What does that mean? I must confess, I'm one of those people that when I open up, I don't get anything there. I just open it up and there's nothing there that relates to my question most of the time, for whatever reason. Doesn't mean the Rebbe says, I don't want to answer you, you're not important. That's where most people will probably take it. What does it mean? That's another way of saying no. We can't really read into that, and I don't think anyone should base anything there. I want to say that even before when the Rebbe wrote physically answers. What happened if you wrote and you didn't get an answer? It didn't always mean that it's a no. It could be other reasons why the Rebbe didn't answer. In fact, if you look in the Rebbe's letters, you see people writing to people that you are asking me, why didn't I answer you? And you're taking it as if I'm upset with, I'm not upset. I was just very preoccupied with something urgent and I just wasn't able to give you the answer. One place I once saw the Rebbe wrote someone, he was complaining that he knows someone who gets answers more often, and he gets answers just once in a long while, and he was complaining as if he deserves to get those answers more. The Rebbe writes back that there's certain people that I know, if I don't answer them, they're going to make the right choice anyway. Other people I know, if I don't answer them, they're going to cause destruction. So I answer them very quickly. So it doesn't always mean not answering is the answering could be a compliment.
No.
So it can't always based on the fact that there is no answer, that it means that it's a no. And sometimes it could mean that this is something the Rebbe wants me to work this out myself with my mashpia. That's exactly what it means. There's no answer. Yes.
What if something is really random, not that makes sense to your situation at all? Is it any way to answer no matter what in some way? Or
I don't think so.
it could just be like random?
That means I didn't get an answer. Like I said, when we wrote to the Rebbe physically, there were times where we wrote and didn't get an answer.
But it doesn't mean like somehow this connects me, like even if I don't see it now. Like feels very.
That might be a possibility. Let me finish up with this because it's time. But I just met someone, it was on Pesach, and he told me that when he went to the Rebbe, the dollars, I don't know if you ever saw this video, but he was standing there when it happened. There's a father walks over to the Rebbe and tells the Rebbe, dollar for a little boy, says the boy stopped speaking, he doesn't speak anymore. And he was standing right behind him, he was next on line. So the Rebbe said to the boy, you know Moida Ani? And he's looking, the Rebbe says again, you know Moida Ani? Say Moida. And the boy goes, Moida, Ani, Lefanecha, says the whole Moida. From that point on, he started speaking. He said, I was so overwhelmed that when the Rebbe spoke to me, I didn't even hear what the Rebbe said. I took it down. He said something, I never paid attention. And he doesn't live here, live somewhere. And now recently he moved to Crown Heights. Someone told him that you can actually get a video. They said, I went to listen to the video and I was in shock. What the Rebbe told me then is relevant to me now. It was not relevant then, 30 years later. So yes, there are times that it might mean that, but if someone looks at a letter and there's no relevance, and I say, yeah, but maybe it means this because that's the gematria of that, and that looks like the other thing. And this is you start making these doing somersaults. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And again, this is all very general, and I'm available. There's going to be more specific questions in your session. Okay, we'll stop there. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski.
The rabbits that like three different rabbits that are like in the book.
I have it here. That was it was a letter that the Rebbe wrote right before Yud Shvat, before the
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski.
High syndrome.
Hi. Thank you.
Here. This is it. What?
You available?
I have to run out.